Well, folks, we're awaiting round two, you could say, of the Twitter files. CEO Elon Musk teasing the release of more internal Twitter documents after the Hunter Biden bombshell that was dropped on Friday. Now, over the weekend, Musk said he needed another day or so to prepare for round two. But it was the mainstream media's reaction to it, or lack thereof, that begs the question, what is it going to take to actually get this story out there? Here to discuss, our panel, branding advisor to CEOs, Marc Rudov, and media strategist Dennis Neal. Dennis, give me your thoughts about what's going on here.
Well, I'm kind of stunned that the journalists that I've admired my entire career have themselves just kind of punted on this story, and they aren't outraged about the fact that the FBI was in frequent touch with Twitter all the time. The DNC asked Twitter to censor, among others, the actor James Woods. And anytime a politician in Washington comes to a private company and asks for something it's not asking, but the media are downplaying this. An hour ago, one of the national publications ran, the Washington Post, no, limiting the Hunter Biden laptop story didn't cost Trump the election. That's kind of an early jump to conclusion, isn't it, guys?
Well, all I can say, Mark, is that Elon Musk felt that it was election interference, what happened at that. Now, that's his conclusion, and people are going to have their own. But your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with Elon Musk, and anybody who doesn't agree with Elon Musk is either an idiot or a liar. I mean, I see that there are three stories here, Bob. One is what happened, Twittergate itself. Then there's the left-wing media reaction to it, as Dennis said. And by the way, they're not journalists at all. And then there's Trump's reaction to it. So those are the three stories I see. And it's clear that the DNC and the FBI manipulated that election. You just cannot deny that. Now, the left-wing media are out attacking Matt Taibbi, the chief disseminator of the news, calling him a PR flack for the richest man in the world, who's also a white supremacist. And then Trump, who is justifiably outraged, saying the election should be done over, or he should be reinstalled as president, or we should suspend the Constitution. Now, the problem with the way Trump is going about this is that he's doing it on Truth Social instead of going in front of TV cameras and holding a news conference, which is what he should do. So when I was at the gym this morning, I looked up on the screen and I saw this CNN screen. And of course, they're denouncing Trump as a lunatic. And that's what he's doing to himself by this haphazard way of reaching out and, I should say, lashing out at what happened to him. Now, again, clearly there was manipulation, there was interference, there was rigging, whatever you want to call it, but you can't deny it anymore. And it even went to the election in Arizona.
But so I'm sure, Mark, I think what made some people sensitive is suggesting that we suspend the Constitution. I'm sure you're not saying that's the right approach, but you're saying there's a better approach that Trump could take at this.
Well, can I just break in here? I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Trump has nothing to do with this. Let's try not to make everything about Trump.
No, we brought up. Dennis, hang on, Dennis. He asserted himself. We have no problem talking about Trump.
I know, but what he said was.
He has a right to say what he said.
Well, but what Trump said was entirely stupid, right? I mean, come on. And so let's just dismiss it. I just want to instead say that 290 million people in this country are not on Twitter at all. And they couldn't hear about any of this because the mainstream press and the journalists that I used to respect and admire were unwilling to see this as an important story. And we haven't even begun to see. I want to see all communications between government officials and Twitter executives.
I think a lot of people want to see that.
And also
I think you're right,
media
Dennis.
companies. I want to see communications between media companies and Twitter. How about that?
Yeah. You know, the thing, Mark, to me that bothers me about Twitter, I think it should be more, if it's as libertarian as Elon Musk claims that he is, there should be a place where all kinds of ideas are shared and you decide. Obviously, there shouldn't be things that are inappropriate, and we kind of know what those things are. But that's what Twitter was not during this election cycle, and that's what people are hoping that it will be in the future, don't you think?
Yes, but again, for Dennis to say this is not about Trump, excuse me, who was running for president in 2020? It was
I just
Donald
want to
Trump,
get back
and
to
he was
Twitter
screwed out of
and
the election.
censoring. I just want to get back to why Twitter felt it should censor the work of a 220-year-old newspaper, the New York Post. I mean, let the New York Post take responsibility. By the way, guys, I was banned from Twitter around noon today. My account was locked for 12 hours. I'm on a timeout.
For what?
Because I tweeted something that violated their policy. And I'm sorry about that.
What was
James
it?
Cameron
What?
came out and said that testosterone's bad and men should give it up. And I said, JC, go ahead and cut your own XXX off. I mean, kind of, if you want. And they said that that's recommending harm. It's the algorithms. And I understand they're unable to detect irony or sarcasm or snark.
Did you just say that testosterone is bad?
That's what James Cameron said. I love testosterone. I feel like it kind of makes
All
the world.
right. Okay, manly man. Hang on a second.
Anyway,
Okay, let's move the conversation along. Mark, hang on a second. I want to address this. Rudy Giuliani appeared on our weekend show, had this to say about what he's calling or referring to as the Biden scandals. Let's take a look at this.
The hard drive proves it conclusively. You have evidence of money going to Joe Biden. You've got evidence of contracts involving Joe Biden. You've got his son saying he gets 50% of it. You have bills paid. You have a money laundering transaction that's on the records of banks with some of that money going to Joe Biden when he was vice president.
Yeah, and Mark, here's the thing about it. That takes our focus back to actually, this involves somebody that was the vice president and is currently the president, and we're still trying to find out more about what happened. I mean, forget the whole Twitter thing. The fact that this was quashed is keeping us from doing this.
Well, that's right. But Twitter was the main organ for the left-wing media communicating to the world. So that's right. 290 million people are not on Twitter, but all the news organizations are. And because half the country didn't even know this was happening. I mean, 12% of Biden voters said had they known about this, they wouldn't have voted for him. And let's compare this to the sports world. If there's cheating in sports, Pete Rose was kicked out of baseball. Yeah. There was Deflategate, the 1919 Black Sox scandal. The whole country goes absolutely nuts when there's cheating in sports. And we can see everything that's happening in sports. We can see the field. We can see the tennis court. We can see the basketball court. But with voting, everything happens behind the scenes. But when people cheat in voting, half the country says, we don't care. So there's something weird.
Dennis,
yeah, well, the thing that gets me about it, guys, is if you look at the New York Times and the Washington Post, they are the pillars of American journalism. And you look at how hard they chased Russiagate for Trump.
Right.
They won Pulitzer Prizes for it without ever discovering that it was planted by the Hillary campaign and paid for, all of that stuff. Where are they now? Why are they not begging Elon Musk for a few scoops of their own? I think it's because there may be communications going on between Twitter executives and big media companies about their collusion in this.
Dennis, let me ask you this. Do you think the Democratic Party contacts the New York Times on a regular basis trying to influence what they do?
Sure, and they probably should. And so should Republican representatives always be making your case. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
It's when they succeed in silencing a media that was supposed to be independent and standing up for America.
And that's my point. That's my point, Dennis, is that our understanding was Twitter was going to be different. That Twitter was going to be a platform which, by the way, is protected from being sued for what it puts out there.
And it's not allowed to edit under that.
Yes, and it has edited, and that's the point, is it did edit.
Me today.
Right. Well, on that one, I may be on board with. I'm not so sure about. Not so sure about you, Dennis.
He deserved it, man.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, if you haven't figured it out yet, the Democrats can't win unless they lie, cheat, and steal. And this whole Twittergate saga has proven that.
Okay. Dennis, you want to throw in a last word that we don't have to edit?
I think that what he said would sum it up rather briefly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Margaret, how about that? We all came together here and seen. Marc Rudov, Dennis Neal, thank you, gentlemen.